Ketvach. We're learning as a schutz for Shlema Filan Chaya Basarach. We're on Sadi Aleph Amad Aleph, about halfway down. I'd say like 12, 15 lines down in the wide lines. Ibaylahu. Tadir v'she'ena tadir. The kadam v'shachad l'she'ena tadir. Mai. If you have tadir and ena tadir, the tadir is kaidim. That means if you have two karbanis, you have to bring, and the question is, and you brought them to the Beis Hamikdash, and they're ready to start the process of shechting them, and so the din is you shecht the tadir before the she'ena tadir. So that means you'd, yeah. Or the same thing would be legabi kaddish. Something is kaddish and something that's not kaddish. You do the one that's kaddish first. But what happens? You have something that's tadir. You have, let's say, what did we say is tadir? The musaf of Shabbos, and it's compared to a oila that's a nadava. So the din is that you do the oila Shabbos first. That's a tadir. Or let's say the tamid against the shlamim. So the tamid goes first. What happens if they did the wrong thing? And they shechted the she'ena tadir. They shechted the shlamim before the tamid. So what's the din? Do we say, "My, me I'm reading keeping the shachte mikravle. Since he shechted it, you got to go ahead and finish the carbon, right? Ein mavir nala mitzvah. So once you started the mitzvah, you got to finish it. Or maybe you'll take this shlamim that you mistakenly shechted, and you'll stir the dam so it doesn't get ruined, and you'll bring the carbon, you'll shecht the carbon that you were supposed to shecht in the first place. And then you go back and be makar the shlamim that you'll be zarek the dam of the shlamim that you really shouldn't have shechted in the first place. What's it? Avraham Huna Misura Tashma. I'll bring you a raya from our Mishnah. Now we're gonna learn this Gemara with Rashi's pshat. I shouldn't say mistakenly, but when we learned the Gemara, when we learned the Mishnah, I said Tais's pshat because Tais's pshat was easier to understand. But now I realize that there was a reason why Rashi learned that his pshat, because he has a whole different pshat than Tais's in the Gemara, and I don't want to now be stuck with the Tais's pshat in the Gemara. I'd rather learn Rashi, so we're going to stick with that. Shalom. So we said in the Mishnah, Shalom shel emesh. If you have a shlamim that was supposed to be brought the previous day, that means they brought the animal to the Beis Hamikdash on Sunday, and then on Monday they brought a chatas and asham. Shal emesh kaidim, you have to bring the shlamim first. And Rashi explains in the Mishnah. Taisus, I'll tell you first what Taisus said, which we're not going to go with. Taisus says, because the one you only have, Taisus is learning it that not that you brought it from the previous day, but that you shechted it the previous day, and therefore you only have till the end of the day to eat it. Rashi learns it's not what it's talking about. So it was brought the previous day, but you didn't shecht it yet, so you still have 2 days. You could shecht it, and then you have 2 days. He says it's the zilzal that a carbon that was brought, the animal was brought the previous day, that you're making it wait for the carbon that's just came today. That's Rashi's pshat. So he says, Shlam shel emesh, chad v'asham shel yoim, if the shlamim came on Sunday, and the chad and asham came on Monday, shel emesh kaidim, you have to bring the shlamim, it's a zilzal in the shlamim to make it wait at this point for the chad and asham. It's kaidim shel yoim. V'akdemara, hadi yoim dumya de emesh, but if you had the same case, where at this point Rashi is understanding that if you brought both of them today, and you shechted first the shel emesh, right? The shlamim arrived in the Beis Hamikdash on Sunday, and now it's Monday, and he shechted already the shlamim. Vehechidami. What's the case of Yom Dumi Emesh? The kadam shachte l'shlamim. He first shechted the shlamim before the chatas and the asham. Chatas v'asham kadi. In that case, we would say the fact that you shechted it first is not going to give it precedence, even though it came the previous day. We're talking about if it was on the same day. If you shechted the shlam first, that's not going to let you bring it first. The chatas and asham are going to be first. So this is l'chayra, a raya on one of the tzadim. We see that even though you were supposed to do, obviously the chatas and asham are more kaddish than the shlamim, where we switched from tadir to kaddish, but it's not really relevant, whatever one has kadima. Even though you shechted the one that's supposed to be later, you still have to wait, and you have to bring the other ones first. At least that's what the Gemara is presuming. Zak the Gemara, no, it's not nishkerai. Dilma shlamim the emesh b'chatas v'asham the yoyim. We're talking about what is the heichi mishkacha. So what is the case of shlamim of the previous day and the chatas v'asham of the same day? Shechtinu l'travayu. That's talking about when you have them both. That's where you shechted both of them, and you're waiting with the dam, and you're trying to decide which one goes first. Are you mezalzel the shlamim that was already supposed to be brought yesterday, and you shechted it today? So in that we're questioning which goes first. Aval loy shechtinu l'travayu. Aval loy shechtinu l'travayu tibayilach. But if you had not shechted both of them, even if you had just shechted the chatas, that's the question that we don't have an answer to. Over there, it's not talking about that question. It's talking about when you shechted both of them. On that, we're saying that certainly the chatas and asham will come first. But if you only shechted the chatas, if you only shechted the shlamim, maybe the shlam mutaka, we wouldn't say yemamaris dama. You make it wait.
But in the case of the shechtinu l'tavayo, means that yesterday's it's Tuesday, Monday's on Bor Shlamim, right? And on Tuesday.
Hold on a second. It's very low. I'm just going to have to raise the sound. I'm helping. I guess that's all. I can't make it louder. Okay, yeah. So say it again.
So, but the case in the Mishnah, right, is we're saying the shechtinu l'tavayo means, in other words, so on Bor Shlamim on Monday, and it wasn't shechted till Tuesday, and on Tuesday the chatas was also shechted.
And the Chatas was first brought also on Tuesday.
On Tuesday, right.
So
in that case, we say they were both shechted, the shlamim goes first.
We say in that case, the shlamim goes first, where they were both geshachted.
Right. But our question was if the chatas wasn't shechted yet.
No.
You did the shlamim.
Hold on. No, it's the other way around. The case over there, the case in the Mishnah is that we shechted both of them.
Right. And it's Tuesday, you shechted Monday.
The question is, are we mezalzel in the shlamim further and make you still?
And the Mishnah says over there, we pass in our Mishnah that you do the zrika of the shlamim.
You're not mezalzel, right?
Now the question here is where you have it's Tuesday, you shechted first the shlamim of Monday, but you didn't shech the chatas yet. So then what do we do?
Right, and that's the iboya.
Right.
And that case remains unresolved from the Mishnah.
Got it.
So we're trying to bring another raya to this question of whether you can overcome the shchita of the one that's less tadir or less kaddish by bringing the other one, or do you have to put it on the side even though you shechted it already, or do you even though it was really supposed to wait, you say that once it's shechted you have to finish it? Tashma davar acha birchas hayayin tadira or birchas hayayin eina tadira. We're giving reasons why when you make kiddush you make birchas hayayin before the birchas hayayin before the kiddush. We say birchas hayayin is tadir. You make a birchas hayayin all the time, and the kiddush of Shabbos or Yom Tov is not as common as the bracha on the yayin. Dasha in the tadir come. But the problem is that l'chayra the chiyuv of kiddush hayayin happens as soon as it's nightfall. You have to say kiddush, but the chiyuv of yayin only comes when you bring out the wine. So why don't we say once you bring out the wine, we should say even though we should say once it comes time, once the wine comes out, it's as if the birchas hayyim the Kiddush Hayom is Keilu like you're already shechted. It's ready to go right away. So maybe you should do that, even though the Kiddush Yayin, the bracha on Yayin is more tadir. So no, that's not a good sushto. Hachanami, even the Asyan, once you bring the Yayin, command the Shchiti Travayu Dami. No, it's true that you're ready to right away make the Birchas Kiddush, which is available from before, but once you bring out the wine, it's not like you just shechted the Eina Tadir and the Tadir is still waiting. It's as if they're both waiting. They're both available right now. So it's as if it's more daimah to something where you shechted both of them. Toshma Adam Rabbi Yochanan, Halacha Mispal Adam Shel Mincha V'Ach Shel Musafin. Once it gets, we've come across this halacha before, right? Once it gets past Chatzais, so it's time, or whenever it's the time for Musaf, Musaf starts from the beginning of the day after you finish Shabbos. And the Zman of Mincha happens, which is sometime after Chatzais. Mincha Ktano, Mincha G'daylo. So we say, when it comes to that time, first you daven Mincha, and afterwards you do Musaf. Musaf was available earlier, so why don't we say Musaf is like the Mincha obviously is the Tadir, but say Musaf is the Eina Tadir, which is as if it's already geschacht and that it's ready to go. So once it gets to that time, they're both ready to go. So there's not really an advantage. You can't say that you now have more of a reason to daven Mincha than to daven Musaf. Whereas in our case, the question is, well, you already shechted the Eina Tadir, or you shechted the Eina Kaddish, you shechted already the Shlomim, so it's more ready to go than the Chatas. Shachtu koidem chatzos. If someone shechted a korban pesach before chatzos, possible neshanem avoy bein harbayim. You have to shecht the korban pesach after chatzos. Koidem letamid. If you shechted the korban pesach is supposed to be shechted after the korban tamid because it's tadir v'sheina tadir. Kasha. If he does it before the tamid, it's kasha b'yei mamaris v'dam acha user. But you should stir the dam. You shouldn't be zayrik the dam. Achi Yisra Kadam. You should wait, bring the Tamid, and then be Zayrik the Dam of the Pesach. So the Chayra, you see that even though you already shechted the Pesach, because it's a Eina Tadir, we say you don't finish the Pesach, but rather you have to wait for the Tamid. So the Chayra, this is a Raya on that side that we go for the Tadir instead of the Eina Tadir, even though you shechted. No, we're talking about where he shechted the Pesach, but maybe they made a mistake and they didn't realize that you're supposed to be zayrik the dam of the Pesach before shechting the Tamid. And someone went ahead and shechted the Tamid incorrectly. And that was saying that then you have, once you already shechted the Tamid, then certainly you have to be zarik the dam of the Tamid before you zarik the dam of the Pesach. It's also medoyek the tani achi yizrik hadam. It says until you zarik the dam of the Tamid. It doesn't say you have to wait until you shecht the Tamid and be zarik the dam. So we're not talking about a case where we're inquiring about whether you should shecht the Tamid after you shechted the Eina Tadir. We're talking about where you shechted both of them already. You shechted both the Tadir and the Eina Tadir. Now, even though you shechted the Eina Tadir first, you still are going to wait. At that point, you're going to wait to finish the Tamid and be zarik the dam. The only
what is supposed to go first, the korban pesach or the Tamid?
The Tamid is supposed to go first in the afternoon. The first part of the brisa wasn't relevant. The part
right. So how come I saying again the Kadam Shachla Tamid Bereisha, which is the correct way to do it? So then what's the question?
No, it means Bereisha before being Zarik the Dam. That means after you shechted by mistake, you shechted the Pesach. That was your first mistake.
That was your mistake.
And you made a second mistake, and you shechted the Tamid also at this point. We're not really sure if that's a mistake. That's why I'm a little hard. I'm having a hard time saying it, because that's really our question. But we want to make it that this is not a riot. So we're saying it's possible that we're talking about over here, where you shechted the Pesach already. Whether it was wrong or not, we don't know. But now that's not our question, because once they're both shechted, that's not our question. Clearly, you're going to do in that case the tadir before the Eina tadir. And we say that's l'chayrim muchach from the Lashon. It says Ache Yizrak Adam. It doesn't say Ache Yishchatu v'Yizrak Adam. So clearly, he already shechted the tamid. So that's the Gemara. But kulin kehanim rishayim. We said the kehanim are allowed to do eat the basa in whatever way they want. My taima amakra l'mashcha l'gedula. Torah says, what is the pasuk? V'hay lechem l'mishmeres ad arba asa yoyim l'chaydish hazeh v'shachtu oisei kol kal asol. That's the wrong one. V'dam Hashem al Aaron v'ani hine nasati l'chas mishmeres trumasi l'chol kasher b'nei Yisrael l'chol nasatim l'mashcha l'vanecha l'chol kolam. I give it to you as l'mashcha. What is l'mashcha? Mashicha is when Moshe, you do mashicha on the kayin and on the melech to be anointed. So anointing is l'gdula. That it should be l'gdula. Kederach sham malachim oichlem. You should eat it the way malachim. You don't have to eat it just plain without any salt and pepper, with cooked in water, a horrible piece of boiled meat. You do it properly, like the way kings would prepare it with all the fixings. Zok the Mishnah. Amr of Shimon. In Roy Shemen Shu Mischalik Ba'azara. If you see Shemen being distributed to the Kehanim and the Azara, Ein Tzarech Lishol Ma'u. You don't have to ask what its source is. There's only two possibilities. Elam Moiser Rikike Minchas Yisrael. It's either a certain type of mincha that Yidden bring called a Rikikin that have a lot of oil and they're not very absorbent. So the extra oil after you pour the oil on them goes to the Kehanim. The like shemen shel Motzei, as well as the like shemen that you bring for the Motzei, which some get spritzed toward the in the heichal, and some gets put on the thumb and on the forefinger and by the ear, but it's still not enough for a whole like. So that extra also goes to Kehanim. So you see it being distributed. Those are only possible sources of where the Kehanim are being distributed oil. Shemen shu nitel al gabe ishim, and if you see oil being burnt on the Mizbeach HaChitzin, you don't have to ask on that also. There's only also two possibilities that. Minchas Kehanim. When the Kehanim are supposed to burn, their minchas are fully burnt, and no one eats them, right? Minchas Yisrael goes to the Kehanim, but the minchas Kehanim gets burnt on the Mizbeach. So the leftover oil also gets thrown onto the Mizbeach to be burnt. Or Minchas Kayin Mashiach, the Minchas Chavitin also, there was oil that went with it that wasn't able to be absorbed in it. She'ein Misnadvin Shemen. The Mishnah concludes, why is this true, that these are the only sources? Because the other possible source for oil would be if someone just gives a independent sort of mincha of Shemen. I was going to learn some achloikis. Reb Tavrin Oimeh Misnadvin Shemen. Reb Tavrin, who's the second man to Amir Mishnah, says you can give a gift. You can give a mincha of shemen. You could say, I want to just give shemen to the mizbeach, and we'll see exactly how that works. But he says you could do so. So that's another possible source of where shemen might be given to Kehanim, or maybe shemen will be burnt on the mizbeach. But the Tanna Kama says there's no such thing, so that's why it's limited to these two options of how you can have oil burnt and oil given. Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says, L'divrei Reb Tarfon. Reb Tarfon, who says you are menad of shemen as an independent gift, hamisnad of shemen kaimtzai, b'shiyar of nechalim. Someone who gives shemen, he takes a kaimitz, and the rest of it goes to the kehanim. Right? If you give a nedava, the rest is given to the kehanim. So that would be the explanation. The first part of the Mishnah that we said that if you see someone giving shemen to kehanim, it has to be one of these two things. According to Reb Tarfon, there'd be a third thing. If someone donated shemen on its own, you would separate the kaimitz, and the rest would go to the kehanim.
I think kaimitz is for flour only, no?
So this is a very strange kaimitz. The Mefarshim talk about how do you do a kamitza of shemen, right? You stick your hand into the oil. It seems very messy, but some say that some of the Mefarshim say that you literally have to take a kli and you do the shear of a kaimitz into a kli. This is Reb Tarfon's shita. As we're going to see, he learns it out from a mincha, so it's modeled on a mincha. So the same way a mincha you do a kmitza, you have to, according to him, you have to do according to Shmuel's pshat. In Reb Tarfon, you have to take a kmitza from a shemen, which you're noting. It's a strange concept. My time, why is it? Amakra carbon mincha. When lamish is daven shemen, the Torah says carbon by mincha. That tells you not just was the pasuk. V'nefesh kisakev carbon mincha Hashem selis yir kabana v'yasek lo shemen v'nasan el levayna. It says the yasek lo shemen by the carbon mincha. Why does that say carbon? It's coming to be marba something. So he says, the Tarfon says, coming to be marba shemen, that you can make shemen as a mincha. The lavish sam is shemen. B'chi mincha, and it's like a mincha. Ma mincha kaimsa b'shira nechal, and just like a mincha, you take off kmitz and the rest can be eaten like animal. Shemen kaimsa b'shira of nechal. Amar Rav Zera afanana mitnina. Rav Zera agrees with Shmuel's pshat and Reb Tarfon. Amar shemen imroy shemen shemischalik bazara. If you see shemen, we see from our Mishnah, right? If Shimon said, if you see shemen that's being divided in the Azara, you have to talk lishal mao. Shimon is the chaylik on Reb Tarfon. He says you don't have to ask. And the Mishnah ends off. The reason for Reb Shimon is because he holds ein misnadvin. So that's why he disagrees with Reb Tarfon. So vice dice, if you did hold like Reb Tarfon, then there would be an additional nesina of shemen. But according to the Mandam who said misnadvin, that you can give shemen, according to Reb Tarfon, it means you do distribute it. Not that it's all burnt on the mizbeach, that the shemen is not like a mincha that is kmitza, but rather the whole thing gets burnt. Amalei Abaya Amos Seifa. I'll ask you in the Seifa. Imroy shemen shenitin al gabi ishim. He says from the Seifa of our Mishnah, where it says that it's also the Mishnah seems to indicate it's dependent on the machlokes of Reb Tarfon and Reb Shimon. Vaisais according to Reb Tarfon, it would be burnt. According to Manda Amar, that's misnadev, it would be burnt. According to the way Shmuel learned Reb Tarfon, the shemen is not burnt. The shemen goes to the Kehanim. You just take off a kaimitz, and the rest goes to Kehanim. So Zaktamara, the Abaya Kasha Reisha, the Rav Zera Kasha Seifa. According to Abaya, who is being chaylak on Shmuel, and Rav Zera, who agreed with him. So the Reisha is shver, because it sounds like Rav Tarfon would say that you do give an adava of a minchas shemen, and according to Reb Tarfon, Reb Tarfon would say you do give an adava. According to Abaya, there's no nadava. The whole thing gets burnt on the mizbeach. Reb Zera kasha seif, and according to Shmuel and Reb Zera, the end is shver. The second part of the Mishnah is shver, that would seem to indicate that Reb Tarfon would disagree with the assertion that there's only two places that shemen is burnt, but according to Reb Zera, according to Reb Zera, there's only two places that the Reb Tarfon would disagree with the assertion that there's only two places that it's burnt, but according to Reb Zera, he agrees that he holds that it's given to the Kehanim to eat. It's not burnt. So what does it make? Why are we trying to be mechalik in the Seifa of the Mishnah? We're trying to say that there's only two places that the shemen is burnt. But according to Reb Zera, he agrees with that. Reb Tarfon agrees with that. It sounds like Reb Shimon holds that there's only two places, but Reb Tarfon says there's a third place. But he says it's not burnt. He says it's given to Kehanim to eat after you take off the kaimitz. So Reb Zera Reisha B'Shirayim Sefer B'Kaimitz. Reb Zera has an eitzah, because he says that the Reb Zera and Reb Shmuel will say, even though they said that most of the Shirayim goes to Kehanim, but there's still the Kaimitz itself, that gets burnt on the Mizbeach. So when we said there's only two things that are burnt, two things where the shemen is burnt, according to Reb Tarfon, there'd be a third thing, the Kaimitz of the Minchas Shemen. El Abaya Kasha. El Abaya, we still have Shver. How will Abaya, what's going to be his answer for the Reisha? So Gemara Tana Reisha Atu Seifa. Eina Chanami, according to Abaya, Reb Tarfon would not disagree about the assertion at the beginning in the Reisha of the Mishnah that we said that there are only two things that shemen is given. Reb Tarfon would agree with that because according to Abaya, the shemen is all burnt. But we just said the Reisha because we wanted to get to the Seifa. So Gemara Bishlam Seifa Tani Mishum Reisha, Reisha Mishum Seifa Mitani. What says that typical practice that will say the Reisha because of what we're planning to say in the Seifa? Sometimes we'll say we said the Seifa once we said the Reisha, but to go the other way around, the Gemara in Amin Bamrava Tana Reisha Misum Seifa. We taka will sometimes say the Reisha because of the Seifa. So now the Gemara is going to go back to the Memra of Shmuel. So let's again remind ourselves, right? Shmuel had learned that which Reb Tarfon said in the Mishnah, that there is such a thing as a nidva shemen. Someone could give an independent gift of shemen to the mizbeach. He says that what does that mean? That means you take off a kaimitz and the rest of it is given to the kehanim. The kaimitz gets burnt on the mizbeach. The rest is a gift to the kehanim. Toshma yayin kedivi Rebbe Kiva l'sfolim. There's a similar machlekes legabe yayin whether you can give an independent gift of yayin, and Rabbi Akiva says he holds that you can give such a gift, and he says it gets poured into the bowls on top of the mizbeach. It doesn't go. You don't take a kaimitz off of it and give a piece to the rest to the kehanim. It all gets poured onto the mizbeach. Shemen kedivri Reb Tarfon leishin, and the shemen according to Reb Tarfon gets burnt in the fire. My lam the yayin kula safal and shemen kula leishim. So the l'chayra it seems to be a raya not like Reb Tarfon was saying that it's all getting burnt. According to Reb Tarfon, you just burn the kaimitz and the rest goes to the kehanim. So just because the yayin was all going into the bowls doesn't mean that that's the same thing with the shemen. When it said the shemen goes on in the ishim, it means just the kaimitz goes in the ishim, not the rest of it. Amar Rav Papa Ketanoi. Rav Papa says this machlokes of whether the shemen according to Reb Tarfon, that you bring shemen, whether there's a kaimitz or not, whether you do take a kaimitz and you give the rest to kehanim, or if the whole thing is burnt on the mizbeach, is a machlokes tanoim. Shemen lo yifchak milug. Shemen, if you give a matana of shemen, it should be less than a lug. Rebbe Aimer shloisha lugim. Rebbe says it has to be 3 lugim. But my kameflagi, what's the basis of the machlokes? Amru Rabbanan kamei Reb Papa. The Rabbanan said in front of Reb Papa, Don minov umina, don minov uki ba'asrei kebenayu. They're arguing about the klal, whether we say when you learn something out, do you use the rules of the source of where you learned it out from to dictate the place that you're learning it out to, or which is don minov umina, or don minov uki ba'asrei, do you learn out the din that you're learning out, but you apply the place that you're learning it to, the new place where you're applying the rule, do you use the rules of that new place? The Ran Savri, the Rabbanan who said that it's la yifchais, that it's only 1 lug. Ma mincha misnadven af shem misnadven. Omino ma mincha lug shemen af kan lug shemen. You learn out a nadav of shemen from the mincha silas, and just like when you do a mincha silas, it's accompanied by 1 lug. So when you do a independent matana of shemen, it's also 1 lug. And similarly, just like the mincha has kmitza and the rest is eaten, so too by the shemen. So that's like Shmuel and Rav Zera's interpretation of Rav Tarfon, that they say there's kmitza and the rest goes to the kehanim. The idach and Rebbe, mincha. You learn out from mincha, ma mincha snav, naf shemen misnav. And they could have shemen, you learn out the din of misnav and shemen from mincha, but you'll apply the rules of where you're learning it out to. Knesachim. Shemen is more similar to yayin. So we're going to learn out asra, and it's a little bit of a liberal interpretation of asra, because we're trying to learn out the din of shemen as a nedava, but we know there is such a thing as yayin, that you could have nesachim of yayin. So we say when you give a matana shemen, it's going to be similar to nesachim. Ma nesachim shloisha lugim, just like when you give a nesachim of yayin, it's 3 lugim. Av shemen shloisha lugim. Ma nesachim kuln l'svalim, av shemen kuln l'svalim liishim. we're going to say that it's not going to follow the din of a mincha with a kmitza and the rest going to the kahana, but rather it's going to be fully burnt like nesach, like yayin. I'm sorry, with yayin, nescha yayin that gets fully poured into the bowl. Amalei rapapal abaya. Mimincha maisila Rebbe the kuli alma domino mino. Rebbe would not have argued. You can't say the reason of Rebbe is because he says we domino of uki ba'asra. Like we said, it's a little bit of a strange uki ba'asra because there is no asra over here. You're really comparing it to something else. El Rebbe me ezrach gamala. He learns it out from a pasuk that it says in the parsha of Yayin. It says the word ezrach. So we say ezrach is coming to say to add into the din of Yayin of Nischei Yayin. There's also a din of Nischei of a Nidava of Shemen. So that's why he says it has. That's why it says it has also the din has Shloisha Lugin, and I'm sorry. That's why, yeah. So he learns it out from Ezrach in Yain. So therefore, that's the reason why it has the din that it goes right into the fire. But it's not because he agrees to the he disagrees with Shmuel. I'm not sure why it makes a difference whether it's because of Dami no Manukibiyah. Could be. He's still not coming out like B'chayra, not like Shmuel and Rav Zera. He's still saying Rebbe is saying that it goes directly into the fire, which is not like that. But in any case, he's disagreeing with the putting it on the smachloikas of Dami no Voki Basha. Only of Huna Breder of Nasan L'Rapapa. Mi Motzei Amirachi. Can you say learn out from Ezra Vatanya Kav Mincha V'Lamed Shemistav and Shemen the Kamash Leishon Lugin? We say that Kav Mincha tells you it can be Menad of Shemen. That's the source that we said before. The Kamash Leishon Lugin. Man Shamle Damash Leishon Lugin. Rebbe. So Rebbe is the man who just said you need 3 lugin, and he's saying you come and learn out from Kav Mincha, not from the word of Ezra. Become Ma'asilami Carbon. Amalei Tanya. He says, okay, listen, if that's what it says, then Eina Chanami, I'm going to have to concede that Rebbe is not coming from Ezra, it's coming from Kav Mincha, and L'chayr it's going to be the Pali in Domino Vokiyas. Amar Shnu, Hamsnad of Yayin, maybe Umzalfa Yagabi Isha. When someone is Menad of Yayin, he brings it and he throws it on the Isha. L'chayr, this is going not like Shmuel. This is like Abayo. Maybe it's talking about the kaimis, but I think it's talking about the shemen itself. I'm sorry, no, we're talking about yayin. So yayin, he says you throw it on the isha. My time. It says a reach nichayach isha. It should be burnt. The reach nichayach. It's talking about yayin. There's the isser to put out the ner tamid, right? The reason why we have a ner tamid in the shul. It's also to put out the fire, the maracha. So how can you throw wine on it? When you throw wine on it, it's going to put out the fire. The Gemara kibbutz mixes loish me kibbutz. When you partially put out a fire, that's not considered putting it out. Iniva Amar of Nachman Amar of Avua Hamayr Gachalas Me'al Gabe Mizbeach but Kibbutz Chayiv. Someone who takes off a coal from the Mizbeach, he's Chayiv for putting out the fire. That's just one coal. So Gemara Dalek we're talking about over there where there's only the one coal. So when you take it down, you chayiv. That's the shear, but it's all because there's nothing left. Your kasha from the beginning was not a kasha. You said, how could you put out with the yayin? You can put out the fire. You don't have to say because kibbutz mitzvah shleishma kibbutz. It's because it's a kibbutz because it's a mitzvah. So when you're doing a mitzvah, you're not being goyim. Tashma. About this question of kibbutz the mitzvah is going to ask. We're trying to bring a raya whether this is true that putting it out for a mitzvah is not considered this. So Tashma the Tana Rebbe Elazar ben Yaakov Kilfi shenosna Torah litra. According to that, which the Torah told you that you have to take off trumas adeshin, there's a mitzvah to take off from the ashes and bring it off the mizbeach. Yachol yichava v'yitru. Maybe you could, even if there's a burning fire, you could put out the fire in order to be able to be kaim the mitzvah of trumas adeshin. Amrit lo yichva. The Torah says you should, but nevertheless we say you shouldn't be mechava. The Torah says you're not allowed to put out the fire. So you see that even though it's a mitzvah, Trumas Hadeshin is a mitzvah, we don't allow to put out the fire for a mitzvah. It's very interesting that we're bringing a raya for this question of whether mitzvah shani. It seems like it's only for this question. It seems like it would be like throughout Shas a question. If the Torah tells you to do something, can you do it even if it's a mitzvah? Now we're saying specifically on this question of kibbutz. So we're saying no, because there's no. We even though it's a mitzvah, Trumas Hadeshin, you still can't put out the fire. So like Shani Hatam, the actually the Yasif Vinata. No, he said that's not a raya in our question. Over there, the only way by yayin, the only way to be Makai in the mitzvah of burning the wine is by throwing it on the fire, which puts it out. Over there, the Gabi Trumas Hadeshin, you could wait. So that's what we say that you can't put out the fire in order to do Trumas Hadeshin, because the mitzvah could be accomplished without being mechava. But over here, we don't have that choice. Tashma.
Is this a case of boss and loisase? Boss Sevachim loisase?
Yeah, that's really what was bothering me. Like, why is this a specific thing of why isn't it follow the general rules of esav? It's a esadaycha. I think it's a question of, since this is in Kachim, is this the procedure? Maybe we're trying to interpret what the Torah meant when it says you shouldn't put it out. So I think it's somewhere on the side of the typical questions of esadaycha. But as we're going to see in a minute, that we're going to bring in the dinim of Einim Miskavin and Malacha Shein Tzrifa Legufa. So it must be a little bit, it's not quite exactly the way I'm saying, but I think it must be that we're talking about over here something, not the generic Asadei Chalaisa say, but rather how do we interpret the Torah's instructions on this in this rule. Toshma. Yayin kedivir Rebbe Kiva. According to Rebbe Kiva, that there is such a thing as an nidvus yayin. L'sfalim, it goes into the bowl. Shemen kedivir Rebbe Tarfon leishim. Shemen, according to Rebbe Tarfon, goes into the fire, which is l'chayr not like Shmuel and Rebbe Zeir. V'oitanya yayin nesach l'sfalim. V'oitanya yayin nesach l'sfalim. The yayin that gets poured out goes into the bowl. So yayin el leishim. Maybe it should go into the fire. Amrit. Lo yichava, but the Torah says you shouldn't put it out, so therefore it can't go to the Ishim. So l'chayr we have a raya. Clearly, this price is saying that you have to pour it into the bowls, because otherwise you're going to be putting it out. So l'chayr, this is a raya not like that. Lekasha harab Yehuda harab Shimon. This that we're saying over here that you can't put it out, you can't put it in the fire. It's going to Rabbi Yehuda, who says Einim Miskaven. Obviously, when you pour wine on the fire, you're not intending to put it out. Your intention is to do the mitzvah of burning the wine. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, Einim Miskaven is aser. Rav Shimon, it's mutter. So this brayse that we just brought that says it's aser, but you can't be mechaves or Yehuda. But our din could be going according to Rav Shimon, who says Einim Miskaven is mutter. So Gemara, remember the Shmuel Rav Shimon svirle. Are we saying that Shmuel, who said over here, Hamsad of Yayin, he could throw it on the fire, holds like Rav Shimon? Ba'amar Shmuel. We said he said you could put out, if you have a burning hot piece of metal in the Rishus Harabim, you could put it out because if someone might get hurt. So we say that depends on the question of whether Malach She'en Tzricha L'Gufa, when you're putting it out, you're not trying to improve the piece of metal. What you're trying to do is avoid people getting hurt. So we say that's a Malach She'en Tzricha L'Gufa. So Shmuel said you can do that, but wood you can't, because wood is the isser of mechava. On metal is the isser derabanan of mechava, but it's not the real isser deraisa. So you see, Shmuel is saying you can't do even a gacheles shaleitz, because even though it's a malacha she'ena tzricha legufa, he still holds it's awesome. According to Shimon, that holds both davar she'ena miskaven and davar malacha she'ena tzricha legufa is mutter. The Gemara is assuming at this point that the two go together. So even if it's a galal shaleitz, who cares that it's awesome midaraisa? It's a malacha she'ena tzricha legufa. like the Mara, but Dava Shein Miskaven Saval Rav Shimon. Shmuel holds like Rav Shimon Legabe Dava Shein Miskaven, which is relevant to our question of putting wine on the wood, which is on the fire, which is a Malacha Shein Miskaven. Malacha Shein Tzricha Legufa, but a Malacha which it's not creating, but rather it's not needed for the purpose that it's being done, for the creative purpose that it's done. Savala Rav Yehuda, he holds like Rav Yehuda. Amar Rav Huna. Nesachim shenitmu oizle marachas mneatzim v'sarf. Nesachim that became tamei, you have to make a separate maracha for them. The Mefarshim explain because you can't go into the same maracha as everything else because otherwise it's not going to be recognizable that it's being burnt. So you have to make a separate maracha so people realize that you're burning it and you're not just keeping it for that it's not being used on the mizbeach. The pasuk says, is the pasuk? You have to burn. Tanyanami Hachi Adam Vashem Amrachas Vanasachim Shenitbu Oisel Amaracha B'Neatzim V'Sarfin. Only Shmuel Rav Chana Bagadata Aisili Be Asara. Bring me 10 people, 10 Edim. Ve'evelach Kamayo. I'll say in front of them. Nesachim Shenitbu Oisel Amaracha B'Neatzim V'Sarfin. I'll say the same halacha. Everyone should know this is Taka the halacha lemaisa. Hadan halach kol atader. Shkayach. We'll continue tomorrow.